Steve, so much for joining us. As you know, I invited you on because we have this fantastic police job searching group, but we recognise that not everybody's going to want to go into, I suppose, a paid position, and they might lean on the expertise that they've gained in the police to perhaps offer some consultancy services or perhaps go into business themselves. And when I met you, I thought you'd be an ideal person to come in and talk about what that looks like starting the self-employment journey, and perhaps what maybe people need to consider as well when they start that. So it'd be great for you to introduce yourself and tell us more, I suppose, about how people have started their journey before and what you can offer, I suppose,
Yeah,
to
sure, no
support them.
problem. So I've been mentoring small business owners now for about 7 years, and supporting them on basically on their business journey and helping them get to a point where their business is making them money rather than them sort of living off their savings whilst for however long, which is often a bit of a problem. So really, when people sort of go out into business on their own, what they're looking at is that they're usually experts in their field. To be perfectly honest with you, Emma, they're at a point where they really know their onions, they know what they're doing, when it comes to their own stuff, but no one ever really teaches you how to run a business. And
Yeah.
particularly for people like the police who've been working in that kind of environment where they've not had to worry about invoicing or anything like that, and all those business skills that you need, but they may come out and of the police, they may have a real specialist skill that they can sell in the commercial world. For example, security advisors is something that kind of
Absolutely.
springs to mind, or security consultant or something like that. So really what it is, it's about, firstly, how do they set themselves up to do it? So really there's two ways. The first way, which is the way that a lot of people go to start off with, is they start off in a kind of almost like a sole trader role. So they're self-employed in that respect. But the thing is, with a lot of the consultancy roles that you get, you don't need to do too much, particularly with what you can charge on the consultancy rate, to hit the VAT threshold,
Okay.
which is at £90,000. So really where people need to do is they generally start off on their own, like I say, in a sole trader route, and they register themselves with HMRC as self-employed. And then they go into, I suppose, they go into maybe setting themselves up as a limited company. And there are advantages and disadvantages behind being limited and between being limited and sole trader. So, for example, if you were a limited company, it basically means you have limited liability personally. Whereas if you're self-employed as a sole trader, where you're at there is if something happens, then you're personally liable. So
Okay.
if it's I suppose the advice that you're giving is, let's say, high risk advice or whatever, and something happens, then you're leaving yourself open to potentially personally being sued or whatever it could be. So I would say, if you're going into that kind of role, limited liability is definitely something worth considering, but you don't
Right.
have to be VAT registered until you hit that 90k threshold.
Okay.
So really, you still have a little bit of scope, and you can register your company very easily on Companies House, and it takes around about 15 minutes to do, and it's a fairly straightforward process. So that's probably the first step I think people would need to consider.
Okay.
And that's kind of the first step into that whole sort of self-employment side of things, really.
Okay. And do you offer advice to support people with those first steps, like helping people maybe weigh up the pros and cons for themselves between sole trader and limited company, like having a chat through with them to help them decide what's the best course for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So they could talk to an accountant. An accountant will give them the kind of, I suppose, the headlines in terms of, from a financial perspective, which is the most tax efficient way to do it and everything. But then there are sort of, I've got a platform called Business Boost Academy, which I
Okay.
use to give lots of sort of advice on there. It's a membership platform, but it gives lots of advice on there on how to set up, run and grow your business, really, and how to plan your business and get an understanding for those sorts of things as well, because a lot of people don't really understand who their client base are. And you know yourself, Emma, as your business evolves, your client base changes, and the direction that you go in changes. And you know, a year down the line, you would have thought you would be servicing a particular type of client, when actually you're not even getting anywhere near that kind of client. You're servicing a totally different area and something that you didn't really expect to, because for whatever reason you might have fallen into that path or whatever. So it's about really sort of understanding and how to market yourself, how to sell yourself. And these are all skills that most people who start businesses don't really have. They have no clue about marketing. You know, they might go to a barbecue around a friend's house or whatever, and they'll say, are you using social media? Or something like that, and oh no, I must use social media, and which platform should I use? And it's a minefield. It is a minefield. It is a minefield. So Business Boost Academy really has been set up to help support people and help people on that journey and help guide them and give them an idea of the things that they need to do to make their business successful and actually build the business that they want. And I'm a big believer that your business is actually a vehicle for your life, not the other way around. But all too often in micro business world, what happens is we end up letting our business actually rule us rather than us ruling our business. So it's about trying to make sure that people have the skills to be able to do that. And no one really teaches you those skills.
Yeah. And I'd say the last thing people would want, particularly if you've came out of a police career, you don't want to, you know, you've worked the shifts, you've worked the unsociable hours, you don't want to start your own business and then go back, you know, that becomes your life again. Like you said, it should become something that, you know, works around you. So leaning on your expertise and having your own, whether it's a consultancy or business. But I was lucky enough as well to see Steve's platform the last time Steve and I were chatting, and it's really, you know, it really does talk you through all the steps. But Steve, tell us a bit more then about the different modules and things that you can go through that I suppose will help people, you know, learn the different parts to make sure that their business is robust and protected.
Yeah, sure. So the first part, the platform is really divided into, I suppose, three main separate areas. So the first area is like community forum, where people can go on and they can ask questions. We've got 17 different experts that are affiliated to the platform. So it doesn't really matter which area of business you've got a challenge with or you've got a question about, there's somebody who can answer that question. So that's the community forum area. The second area is, I would say, is probably more like they call it the classroom within the platform that I'm using, which is the educational part. Now there are three main different parts to that where there is education. So the first one is planning your business, and that's all around sort of understanding how to set your business up. It's about understanding how to plan your business properly and how to put those plans into place and do what you're trying to do with the planning that you're hoping to do and where you want to get to, and get an understanding for how you can really build that that understanding of where you want to go. And again, people don't necessarily have a goal, but you know, there's a great line, I can't remember where I read it, but a goal without a plan is just a dream. And actually it's really about just taking that goal forwards. I wish I'd written that one actually, Emma, because it would have been a nice little one to have a credit to my name, but unfortunately I didn't. But it's about that side of it. So it's about planning and understanding your business, and then the second part is growing your business. And that looks at all of the sales and the marketing side of things, and how you sell yourself properly, how you present yourself, who your target clients are, how you reach those target clients, and really get an understanding for how the different marketing techniques and the different sales techniques that you can use. Because again, you know, people's perception of sales as well is one of those things that, oh, you know, we all have this image of a 1980s double glazing salesman, you know, who's going to stand at your door and sell to you until you sign on the dotted line, and your price is going to drop from £15,000 to £2,000 or whatever. And they're going to go out into the hallway and speak to their boss. And everyone has this sort of really negative connotation of what a salesperson is, when in reality, sales is just a conversation. It's a structured conversation, but it is just a conversation. So in the platform, we teach people how to have those sales conversations and how to have a sales process about what they do as well. And then the last part of it really is about sort of managing your business. And it's called running your business, but it's about how you manage your business, and it's about understanding the financial aspects to it as well, because it is a minefield. You know yourself. You think you're making money, and often you're not necessarily making money, and it's about how you manage your finances correctly to ensure that you have enough money in the bank, and it's just teaching people little tips and tricks to be able to do that, how to put together a cash flow forecast, which is, in my opinion, probably the most important management tool we can have when we're running our business. But it's not difficult to do. It's difficult if you don't know how to do it. But what I do is, in the videos on there, I show people how to do it. And then we've got a couple of other sections as well. So I'm regularly interviewing people, doing what I'm sat on the other side of the screen this time, Emma. Usually I'm sat on your side of the screen interviewing people, but we do podcasts with people who have lots of experience within business, and then they share some of their business insights that they've experienced, and where they got to on their journey, and how they got to where they got to, and little nuggets that you only really learn through experience. No textbook is actually going to really teach you. And then the last thing we have mastermind sessions. So we'll have a business owner who is a specialist in a particular area, and then they'll talk in depth about their particular area as well. So it's about trying to give people as much information and as much understanding that they can have. And then the last thing we do is we have drop-in sessions. So people pay, if people want to work with a business coach or a business advisor, they're going to pay hundreds of pounds a month because they're getting that person's time dedicated. Whereas with this, what we're trying to do is do something where people don't have to pay hundreds of pounds a month. They can pay a fairly small amount a month to be a member of it, but then they have the opportunity for drop-in sessions where they can drop in, they can ask a question, they can talk about various different things. So to give you an example, we've got a lady who came onto one of the sessions a couple of weeks ago, and she's a holistic therapist, and what she was wanting to do was do some videos, but she didn't know how to do videos. She didn't know the platforms that she should be using. She didn't know how to film herself. She didn't know how to edit the videos down. She didn't know how to put subtitles on there and everything like that.
Sounds like me.
So we sat down and we talked her through all of that, and the sorts of things, the software that she can use. And we're trying to use sort of free to use software as well, because a lot of these platforms, what they do is they let you have a limited amount of functionality, but often the functionality is enough. You don't often necessarily need to pay for them. So we sat down and we talked her through how to do that, and she's now posting her own videos. So it's that kind of thing. It's about supporting people and giving people the best possible platform, or best possible foundation, that they can use to do what they're wanting to do.
So it's basically, I would say, from what you're describing and from what I've seen as well, it's a all-encompassing platform, but with that personable service as well, that there's lots of actual people they can can talk to, liaise with, and gain that support as well, because if they don't know something, someone else will, and you can all lean on each other's expertise.
I'm trying to create a real community, and that's the thing. It's about a community of people who are going out on their business journey, and they're really new at it, and it's this big, wide, scary world thing that they don't really know where to start. And it's not until you really turn your computer on that first day that you start out on your own that you sit there and you think, oh my God, what have I done? I need to find some clients, I need to have a website, I need to do this, I need to do that. And all of a sudden, you've got this to-do list that's about 4 sheets of A4 long, and you don't know how to start on any of it. And then you get some well-meaning friends that say, have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done the other? And you think, oh God, I've got to add that to the list. And the
No,
overwhelm starts instantly. So
absolutely. And there is periods as well throughout your business, and because you will have your peaks, you will have your troughs, and there is always feelings of overwhelm. But as myself as a business owner, I do need the expertise of others. And the biggest lesson I've probably learned is rather than trying to do everything yourself, it's best to lean on other people's expertise because you'll get it done faster and you could be making the money as to what you're good at, rather than spending your precious time that could be paid time on doing other things. Is
yeah,
probably the biggest lesson I've learned.
yeah, absolutely. And I also think that as well with a lot of people, you know, when you're going through um, that whole sort of starting a business, there's a lot of advice out there. And it's all well-meaning advice, but not all of the advice suits all of the people. So it's
Yes.
about trying to take the advice that works for you and actually works for you correctly. And there are certain things that you need to do in a business that everybody should be doing. Like I
Yeah.
say, cash flow forecast is the first thing that springs to mind, and understanding how your money is coming in and your money is going out and where your money is going to and all that sort of stuff. And that's probably the most fundamental thing. But a lot of people will say things, and it's well-meaning advice. So, for example, somebody might turn around to you and say, "Are you using Facebook? You know, you need to be advertising on Facebook." Well, if your clients aren't sat on Facebook, then there's no point. But if your
Exactly.
clients are on something like LinkedIn, then absolutely there is a point. Now, up until probably about a year ago, TikTok was a platform where everybody sort of would create videos where they were dancing to weird tunes, or, you know,
Yeah.
they were hurting themselves by jumping off a building or something ridiculous. And it was seen very much as an entertainment platform. Well, TikTok has now started turning into much more of a business platform.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people using TikTok from that perspective. So while people are doom scrolling whilst, you know, whilst they're having their dinner or whatever, actually a lot of people, if they have a business focus to what they're doing, then their feed, the algorithm will be feeding them TikTok videos that are relevant to their interest. So it's about knowing where you are, and it's about how to set yourself up on these platforms
Yeah,
as well.
and maybe what networking events as well, and whether it's online, face to face, that you could be including as well. So it's you can't do it all, and it's about working out which ones suit you and your business and where your potential clients are hanging out as such.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, you know, probably the best piece of advice, if you know, if somebody's watching this video and they're thinking of starting their business, and, you know, they're working their notice within their job at the moment, or whatever it would be, I would say the best piece of advice I can give you is your first few clients will come from within your own network.
Yeah, I
um,
agree.
pe- People that you know, people that you know have a requirement for the service that you're going to be offering. So, you know, before you start, if you're prepping yourself for going into business, you want to be reaching out to those people, and if you're able to, and you're not under any sort of contract restrictions or anything like that, if you're able to reach out to your existing contact base, your own network, and let people know what you're doing, then that's where you'll get the work. Now, you might not get the work directly from those individuals, but you may get work from from people that those individuals know, because
Yes.
they may then refer you on to their, you know, their friends or their colleagues or their work client, whatever it is, their contacts is the word I'm looking for.
Okay.
So, you know, that's something that's doing. And again, there are so many different ways that you can market yourself as well. And, you know, people will sit there and they'll go, oh, social media is the way forward. Social media is one way forwards. You know, there are
Yes.
many others. As you mentioned a minute ago, networking is a big one. And I've got about 5 or 6 different channels that I use: email marketing, networking, social media. I use all of those different things. I'm also looking at doing a little bit of uh, snail mail outreach, because
Okay.
people don't generally get post anymore. You know, everything
True.
comes through email. But people often turn email marketing, they go, oh, it's another blooming spam email, delete that. I'll come off that subscription list or whatever. But actually with the post, it works quite well. And I've got one, you know, a couple of my clients, what they're doing is they're actually targeting people specifically and then going out and visiting those people with a sample of the work that they do or the produce that they provide. And that seems to be working very well for them as well. So marketing, you've got to think a little bit laterally with your marketing. A friend of mine on a podcast that I did a couple of weeks ago, he said something very, very appropriate, which was, when you're marketing, the idea is to set yourself aside from the competition, to make yourself stand out from your competition. All too often what happens is people follow what the competition are doing. So as a consequence of that, they're not really making themselves stand out. So it's about marketing is about trying to stand out from the competition so people see you and understand what you're doing.
No, you're completely right. Steve, probably the burning question everybody has, as you'd touched upon earlier on, if people are looking for a specific coach, and of course there is value in that, but in the early days of business, it does feel like a high outgoing, because it will be hundreds of pounds a month. What is the investment that people will make for you on a monthly basis to join your community?
So for Business Boost Academy, we're looking at just £69 a month.
Brilliant.
And the reason it is so cheap is because micro businesses can't afford, an outlay of, you'll pay, working with a coach, you'll pay anywhere between £500 and £2,000 a month.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of money to outlay if you don't have that money. And with Business Boost Academy, what we really wanted to do was set something up that had real value, that didn't actually break the bank. So the goal with BBA for me, really more than anything, is to try and build quite a large community. So what I would like to do is I would like to have a few, it'd be wonderful if we had a few thousand members on there. And the principle behind it moving forwards isn't just about building a community so I can have 15 Porsches parked in the driveway and 18 Rolexes on my wrist or anything like that, because to be honest with you, money isn't something that floats my boat, or material things aren't something that floats my boat. But what I really want to do with it is invest, and invest in the youth, and create almost like a platform where the young people, the young entrepreneurs of this world, can get some real support. Because unfortunately, there isn't a lot of support out there for young people. They come out of school, they may be wicked at chemistry or physics or and one of the other core curriculum lessons, history or geography or whatever, but they don't have life skills, they don't have business skills. And even if they've done a business, I don't know, a business studies A level or a business studies GCSE or whatever, they still don't necessarily have the practical skills to go about it. So what I want to do is I want to create sort of like reinvest the money that Business Boost Academy makes and reinvest it into investing into young people's businesses. Because if a young person who's 18 years old is going to a bank and says, I've got this really cool idea, I really want to do this, I want to invest, I need £5,000 startup capital. The bank turns around and says, well, what's your credit thing? Are you a homeowner, and all of these other things?
Absolutely.
Well, actually, it's impossible for those young people to get money. So what I would like to be able to do is actually reinvest some of the money that Business Boost Academy makes into those young people, and then actually also provide them with a mentor. So somebody who can really support them, and ultimately they will pay that money back. It's a loan. It's not going to be it's not going to be an astronomical interest rate or anything like that. But what we'll do is we'll sort of like take some equity in the business, and then as they pay the loan back, we'll just give them the equity back. Brilliant. So ultimately, once the loan is paid back, they own 100% of their business. They have a mentor that's helped them over a period of time to help grow the business, and hopefully that will get them on the journey to doing it.
That's great.
And that's the principle behind it, without wanting to be political or anything like that, because I'm so apolitical, it's untrue. But the government, whichever government in, where you're wearing a red tie, yellow tie, or a blue tie, it doesn't matter. They have a different agenda, and I feel it's down to us as the business community to support the future business owners that are coming through, and the young people. And that's where the future of the economy is going to be coming from. It's going to be coming from these people. So if we can invest in these people, and we can invest time and effort into these people, then hopefully that will set them onto the path that so many people have enjoyed over the years.
Fantastic. Well, look, Steve, that has been fantastic. What I will do is I will put Steve's contact details in the comments if anybody wants to reach out to Steve. Equally, if anybody's got any questions for Steve, please let me know, and I can get that relayed back onto Steve as well. And also, if anybody's got any topics they would like Steve to cover, perhaps just to give a snapshot, then I can certainly ask Steve to come back on again, and share more of his expertise with us. But thank you so much, Steve, for coming along today.
Not a problem. One thing I would say as well, Emma, just quickly, is if you wanted to join Business Boost Academy, it's a 7-day free trial. So
Brilliant.
you can go on there, you can sign up to it. You don't have to pay anything, and if it is for you, then you can stay. So I've tried to make it as cost effective as I possibly can.
Fantastic. No, thank you so much, Steve. But yes, thanks again for your time.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for having me, Emma. I really appreciate it.
Okay, speak soon. Bye,
Yeah,
Steve.
take care.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.